My name is Derek Harper. I am 42, born and raised in Pennsylvania, now living in a suburb just outside Columbus, Ohio. Been married for nearly 16 years to a woman named Elise. If you asked anyone who knew us, they'd tell you Elise and I were the picture of stability. A beautiful home, 2 kids, steady jobs, a neat lawn. Elise runs a mid-size accounting firm with her name on the building. I'm a high school guidance counselor. Quiet, consistent, nothing flashy. I used to believe we were a team, a partnership. Maybe not passionate like we were when we first met in college, but solid, built on shared values. That was enough for me. For a while, it seemed like it was enough for her too. But looking back now, I realize I was blind. Not in the tragic, betrayed husband way you see in movies. Not yet. Mine was a slow kind of blindness. The kind that creeps in with routine and goes unnoticed until you're surrounded by shadows you never realized you lived in. Elise started treating me like I was, well, not cruelly, just like I wasn't really there. Conversations turned into monologues. I'd ask a question, and she'd answer 2 hours later like she was catching up on a delayed text. Our dinners got quieter. Our weekends, colder. She smiled when she texted someone else. She laughed when she didn't know I was watching. At first, I blamed myself. Thought maybe I was boring. Maybe I wasn't pulling my weight. I tried more date nights. Brought home flowers. Took over more chores without her asking. She thanked me, sure, but it felt transactional. Mechanical. Like I was another appliance in her house that still worked, but didn't spark anything anymore. Then she stopped touching me altogether. No hugs. No casual kisses. No hand on the shoulder. Nothing. I became furniture. Present. Functional. Ignored. I didn't say anything about it for months. I told myself it was just a phase. Stress. The kids. Work. But deep down I was scared. Scared that if I brought it up, she'd confirm the truth I wasn't ready to face. And then came the morning that changed everything. It started like any other Wednesday. I was up early. Made coffee. Packed the kids' lunches. Elise came downstairs dressed immaculately, holding her phone as always. Morning, I said. She didn't answer. Just typed something quickly and walked past me to grab her keys. Going in early? Yeah. Long day, she mumbled. Her phone buzzed again. She smiled. Not at me. Then she walked out. I almost let it go. Almost went back to my coffee and my planner. But something about that smile, it wasn't the kind she gave to clients. It was the kind she used to give me. I stood up, looked at her untouched coffee, and then I looked at her tablet sitting on the counter, unlocked. I swear to you, I wasn't trying to spy on her. I wasn't. But when you're invisible for long enough, even a whisper of something solid feels like an anchor, like proof that you still exist. So I tapped the screen. Her messages were open. I don't know how long I stared before I actually understood what I was reading. The words weren't explicit, but they didn't have to be. I barely slept thinking about yesterday. You make me feel seen again. Can't wait for Friday. Same hotel. He doesn't even notice. I think he stopped looking a long time ago. That last one broke me. He doesn't even notice. That was what she thought of me. A ghost. A man too dull, too small, too comfortable to even realize she had vanished from our marriage long ago. I set the tablet down. I didn't throw it. Didn't cry. I just stood there numb. She had someone else. I didn't know who. I didn't know how long. But it wasn't a one-time mistake. This was something deeper. Something intentional. She had been planning her life outside of ours, while I folded laundry and prepped lunches and tried to keep the glue intact. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I needed time to breathe, to think. But I started watching. Not out of spite. Out of survival. I began noticing her patterns. The late meetings. The sudden spa days. The new lingerie that never made it into our bedroom. She thought I didn't see her anymore. The truth was, I had never seen her more clearly. One Friday evening, after she said she had a networking mixer downtown, I followed her. I parked 2 blocks away and watched as she entered a boutique hotel with someone I didn't recognize. Tall, clean cut, younger. They laughed in the lobby. She touched his chest. He leaned in like he belonged there. They disappeared into the elevator together. And I sat in my car in the rain, staring at my hands like they belonged to someone else. That was the night I stopped feeling invisible. Because now I had a choice. I could crumble, or I could wake up. I chose the latter. But what came next would unravel far more than just an affair. Because Elise wasn't just hiding a lover. She was hiding a life. After that night in the rain, everything looked different. My house, my wife, even my reflection. The man in the mirror wasn't the quiet husband anymore. He was someone cracked open, awake, and finally willing to admit that love, when neglected long enough, becomes something unrecognizable. I didn't confront Elise that night, or the next. I couldn't, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses or watch her lie straight to my face. So I watched. I became an observer in my own life. I took careful note of her absences, the timings, her sudden new interest in fitness, her increased work travel, the way she'd come home and immediately take a shower, always before hugging the kids. A week ago, I wouldn't have noticed. Now, every action was a clue. Then I did something I once would have considered a betrayal. I hired a private investigator. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. I needed proof, not for court, not for leverage, but for myself. Because deep down, I still wanted to believe I was wrong. That maybe this wasn't what it looked like. But I wasn't wrong. 2 days later, the investigator sent me a file. Photos, phone records, hotel receipts, surveillance footage. Elise and the same man. His name was Dylan West. He worked in advertising. Divorced. No kids. 6 years younger. Elise had been seeing him for almost 10 months. 10 months. That was nearly a year of lies. A year of school drop-offs and holiday dinners while she lived a second life. But something in the report made my hands go cold. There were charges on a shared credit card. Elise had used it to book a weekend getaway in Charleston. But the booking wasn't under her name. It was under Caroline Evans. That wasn't her maiden name, or her middle name. That wasn't any name I'd ever heard her use. I stared at it for a long time. Who was Caroline Evans? When I searched the name, nothing came up locally. But I did find a record in Massachusetts. An old lease agreement from over 17 years ago, signed by Caroline Evans, same date of birth as Elise. That's when I realized Elise had another identity, a past she never told me about. The investigator confirmed it the next day. Before moving to Ohio, Elise had lived in Boston. She used the name Caroline Evans for nearly 3 years. There were tax records, a former job, even an apartment lease. Then she vanished. No forwarding address, no trail, until she showed up in Pennsylvania with a new name, a new life, and met me. I sat with that revelation in silence. My wife hadn't just lied about her affair. She had lied about who she even was. I dug deeper, and then I found something that shook me. There was a court document from 2006, a sealed family court hearing in Boston. The public listing gave only limited info. No charges, just a sealed custody evaluation and a petition to change jurisdiction. But the name wasn't Elise Harper. It was Caroline Evans. I stared at the screen. Had she been married before? Had she had a child? The air left my lungs. That night, Elise came home late again. I watched her walk in with the same tired expression, her designer handbag, her soft high like nothing was wrong. She kissed the kids, ate half a salad, answered work emails. I sat across from her, barely able to hold my gaze steady. She looked up finally. "You're quiet tonight," she said. I nodded. "Just tired." She accepted that, smiling faintly. The same smile I saw in those hotel photos with Dylan. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I made a quiet decision. I took a day off work and drove to Boston. I went to the family court building and requested any non-sealed information on the Caroline Evans case. Most of it was closed, but the clerk gave me one small detail. There had been a child listed on the documents. A boy. His name wasn't available. No death certificate. No custody agreement. Just a void. I left the courthouse with more questions than answers. That evening, I called Elise at work and told her I needed to talk. Not at home. Somewhere neutral. She agreed, hesitantly. We met at a park, far from familiar places. She looked guarded when she saw me. "What's this about?" she asked. I looked at her for a long time before speaking. "Who is Caroline Evans?" The color drained from her face. What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me," I said quietly. "I know about Boston. I know that name. I know about the sealed court case. I know. There was a child." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Then she sat down on the bench behind her, eyes wide, hands trembling. How did you? I had to, I said. Because you wouldn't tell me. Because I've been living in a marriage that was never what I thought it was. Tears welled in her eyes. I wasn't supposed to ever look back, she said, voice shaking. I promised myself that when I left, it would all stay buried. You had a child, Elise. Assume. She nodded slowly. I was 24. His name was Benjamin. He was taken from me. Not because I was unfit, but because his father, he had more money, better lawyers, and I couldn't fight anymore. I was alone. I changed my name. Started over. I didn't want that version of me to follow. And what about Dylan? I asked. She looked away. I didn't mean for that to happen. It started as, I don't even know, but he reminded me of someone I used to be. Someone who felt alive. I didn't want to leave you, Derek. I didn't know how to be honest anymore. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The weight of it all, the affairs, the lies, the forgotten child, it was too much. I still love you, she whispered. I looked at her then. Really looked at her. I don't think you even see me, I said. Not the real me. Not the man who stood by you for 16 years. I became invisible because you needed me to be. Her tears spilled over, but I didn't reach for her. Not this time, because something deeper than pain had settled between us. Truth. And truth doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just breaks everything open. After that meeting in the park, I didn't go home. I drove aimlessly for hours through the winding roads just outside town, past diners and gas stations lit by flickering neon. I couldn't stop replaying her words in my head. His name was Benjamin. He was taken from me. That sentence kept echoing like a haunting chorus I couldn't tune out. She'd lived a full chapter of her life before me. A child, a courtroom, a man I knew nothing about. And I never saw even a shadow of it. 16 years of marriage, and she never whispered his name. What else had she buried? When I finally did go home late that night, Elise was already there. Sitting on the couch, her coat still on, phone beside her, untouched. Her eyes were red. She stood up when I walked in, like she didn't know what to say. I need time, I told her before she could open her mouth. She nodded. I understand. She didn't try to explain or apologize again. For once, she didn't try to control the moment. She went upstairs. For the next few days, we existed in the same house, but on different planets. We made breakfast, packed lunches, paid bills. But there were no shared glances. No small talk. No pretending. Just distance. And in that distance, I started looking for answers she never gave me. I went back to Boston. This time I searched deeper. The investigator helped me track down a man named Richard Hallstrom. He'd been listed on an old housing lease tied to Caroline Evans. We found him living in a quiet suburb outside Salem. Early 50s. Retired military. When I knocked on his door, he didn't look surprised to see me. You're Elise's husband, he said after a moment. Or I guess you went by Caroline back then. I just want the truth, I said. He invited me inside. The place was clean, sparse. Old photos lined a shelf. One of them had Elise in it, younger, smiling, holding a toddler boy with curly dark hair. That's Benjamin, he said softly. She never told me, I said. He nodded. She wouldn't. It broke her. I don't even think she's ever forgiven herself. He explained that Elise, Caroline, back then, was with a man named Colin Matthews. They weren't married, but Benjamin was born into a whirlwind of a relationship. Colin was wealthy, connected. Elise was fresh out of grad school, struggling. When Benjamin was 2, Colin filed for full custody. Claimed Elise was mentally unstable, incapable of parenting. He had lawyers. She didn't. She lost. She moved out of Boston the day the court finalized the custody. Never looked back. Did she ever try to get him back? I asked. She wrote letters, Richard said. Tons of them. But Colin sent them back. She called. He changed numbers. Eventually, she stopped. I left with a copy of one of those letters. Richard had saved it. Said he thought she'd want it someday. It was dated just a month before she left the state. In it, she wrote, Benjamin, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if your father will let you. But I want you to know I never gave you up. I just couldn't fight anymore. I hope one day I get to see the person you become. I will always love you. No matter what name I wear, no matter where I live. I am your mother. Forever. Caroline. I cried for her in that moment, for the woman I thought I hated just days ago. Because pain like that, it never leaves. It just gets covered in layers of control and silence and secrets. When I returned to Ohio, I handed Elise the letter. She read it once, then again. She broke down, not with drama, but with a grief that had clearly waited 2 decades for air. "I didn't tell you," she said through sobs, "because I wanted to protect what we had. I was afraid if you saw that part of me, you'd run." "I wouldn't have run," I said, "but I would have understood you better." That night, for the first time in what felt like forever, we talked, really talked. She told me everything. About the trial, about Colin, about the night she left the hospital and never saw her son again. "He'd be almost 19 now," she whispered. "Sometimes I imagine bumping into him at a bookstore and not even knowing." Then she said something that stopped me cold. "Last month, I got a message." "From who?" "A woman named Rachel Matthews. She's Colin's sister. She said Benjamin had reached out to her, that he found the letters, that he wanted to talk to me." "You still here, stunned. You didn't tell me?" "I didn't know how," she said. And then things between us were already falling apart, and Dylan was... I stood up. "Elise, does he know who you are?" She nodded slowly. I never wrote back. We were both silent for a long time. Then I said, "You need to." And I meant it. Not because I was trying to fix her or us, but because some truths don't deserve to stay buried. Over the next few days, Elise drafted an email. I helped her. She didn't say much, just enough to open a door without pressure. She sent it on a quiet Sunday morning. We waited. That evening, she got a reply. From Benjamin. He didn't say much either, but he asked to meet. Elise cried, quietly, clutching the laptop like it was made of glass. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "No," I said, "but maybe you both need it." And just like that, everything started shifting. Our marriage was still broken, but now it had a foundation made of truth, not silence. 1 week later, Elise and Benjamin met in a small cafe outside Columbus. I stayed back. That moment wasn't mine. But when she returned home, her hands were shaking, her eyes red, but filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. "Hope. He looks like me," she whispered. "He asked me why I waited so long." I told him the truth. And I asked. He didn't forgive me. Not yet. But he said he might want to see me again. Sometimes that's all you get. A second chance in slow motion. But just when I thought that was the end of the storm, Dylan came back, and he wasn't ready to let go. I thought it was over. Not the marriage, though that too hung in a space between repair and ruin, but the chaos. The storm of secrets, the heartbreak, the unraveling. I thought Elise meeting Benjamin would be the final act. A slow, painful healing process, yes. But no more surprises. No more twists. Then, Dylan showed up at my door. It was a Thursday afternoon. The house was quiet. Elise was at work, the kids at school. I was prepping lesson plans in the dining room when I heard the knock. When I opened the door, there he was, tall, expensive coat, slick haircut, fake smile. "Derek," he said smoothly. "Can we talk?" I should have slammed the door, but I didn't. Something in me needed to see him. This man who helped tear apart my life like it was a hotel room he could check out of the next morning. So I let him in. He didn't sit. He paced. Like a man holding back fire he didn't know how to aim. "She cut me off," he said. "Won't answer my calls. Deleted her socials. She just disappeared." "She didn't disappear," I replied calmly. "She came home." He laughed bitterly. "So that's it? She comes clean to you, sees her long-lost son, and suddenly you two are a family again. You don't get to comment on our family. I was with her for almost a year, Derek. A year. She told me everything. Said she felt alive again. Said you didn't even see her." He looked at me with a mix of rage and desperation. "She told me she loved me. She also told you her name was Elise, not Caroline. So tell me, Dylan, how well did you really know her?" That shut him up. I leaned against the doorway. Calm, tired, done. "You were a distraction," I said. "A mirror she used to forget who she was." And now that mirror cracked. He stepped closer, jaw clenched. "You think she's fixed now? You think meeting her son changes everything?" "No," I said, "but at least she's trying. You're still pretending this was love." He looked like he wanted to hit me, but instead he smiled, tight, condescending. "She'll come back. You know that, right? Maybe not now. Maybe not this year. But people like her don't stay still. They burn things down and move on. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He left a minute later, slamming the door behind him. When Elise came home that night, I told her. Every word. She didn't get defensive. She didn't cry. She just nodded slowly and said, "I'll handle it." She sent Dylan a single message. "I'm not running from you. I'm just done. I don't owe you anything more. Please do not contact me again." He didn't reply, and for a while, he disappeared. But Elise wasn't the only one being watched. A week later, I came home from work and found our mailbox pried open. Torn envelopes. A letter from Benjamin, ripped in half. Someone had gone through our private mail. We filed a police report, but they didn't do much. No cameras. No prints. But I knew it was Dylan. He was unraveling. And Elise, despite everything, was terrified. "I brought this on us," she said one night, sitting on the edge of our bed. "He was harmless when I didn't pull away. But now you're not his fantasy anymore," I said. "Now you're real. And he can't handle that." We installed cameras, changed passwords, alerted Benjamin. But Dylan didn't try again. Instead, we got silence. Weeks of it. It almost felt peaceful. Until Elise got the package. No return address. Just her name. Inside was a photo album. Page after page of printed selfies. Her and Dylan. Laughing. At restaurants. In bed. At the beach. Some I recognized. Some I didn't. At the very back, a note written in sharp black ink. "We had a life. You can pretend it didn't happen, but I know who you are. You're not a mother. You're not a wife. You're just a lie in a nice house." I held her while she cried. Not just because of the invasion, but because in some dark way, those words echoed her own worst fears. She'd spent years hiding her past, afraid no one would love the real her. Now someone was weaponizing it. We contacted the police again. They took the album, logged it, warned us to be cautious, but there wasn't much they could do without a direct threat. That night, Elise couldn't sleep. "I deserve this," she said. "Elite. I ran. I used people. This is what happens." "No," I said firmly. "You deserve to answer for what you did. And you have. You've owned it. But that doesn't mean you deserve to be hunted by someone who can't let go." She looked at me, then really looked at me, for the first time in a long time. "Why are you still here?" she asked, voice small. "Because I still see something in you worth staying for." Her tears came silently. "I don't know how to be enough." "You don't have to be," I said. "You just have to be honest." And she was. From that night forward, therapy started. For her. For us. Benjamin kept writing. Kept showing up. The kids noticed something different too. Lighter dinners. Less tension. More laughter. Awkward at first, but real. Dylan? We didn't hear from him again. Until one morning, Elise opened her work email and found a message with no subject line. Just a single sentence. "If I can't have you, no one will." The police finally took it seriously. A restraining order was filed. Dylan's name flagged. We had to explain it to the kids, to the school, to Benjamin. And Elise? She cracked. For a day. Maybe two. But then she got up, dressed, and said, "We're not hiding anymore." I believed her. Because the woman I saw that morning wasn't running anymore. She was finally facing everything she had once buried. But redemption doesn't come in a clean arc. It comes in scars, in police reports, in the way you show up for your kids, even when your hands shake. And just when I thought we were through the worst, Benjamin called us. He had found someone who knew Elise back then, and they had something to say, something that would turn everything upside down again. The call came on a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen making pancakes for the kids when Elise's phone rang on the counter. She was upstairs. I glanced at the screen. Benjamin. I answered. "Hey, Ben. She's upstairs. Want me to grab her?" There was a long pause on the other end. "Actually," he said slowly, "can I talk to you first?" My stomach tightened. Of course. He took a breath. There's someone who reached out to me. Someone who knew my mom when I was little. Said she worked with her at a temp agency back in Boston. Her name's Adrian. I leaned on the counter, heart beating faster. She told me. "There's more to the story," Benjamin continued. "About my dad. About why the custody case happened. It's not what Mom said. Not completely." My pulse thudded in my ears. "What do you mean?" She said Colin didn't just take me because of money or power. He took me because he found something. A journal. Something Caroline, Mom, wrote when she was struggling. Adrian says it had entries about hurting herself. About hurting? I closed my eyes. But Adrian also said she remembered how much my mom loved me. How she'd sing to me in the break room. How she used to cry holding my picture when she thought no one saw. She said Caroline was just drowning. Alone. Not dangerous. I was silent. Benjamin continued, voice softer now. I don't know what to do with this, Derek. I want to believe my mom. I really do. But if this journal exists, if she really wrote those things, even just out of pain, shouldn't she tell me that herself? I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. You're right, I said. She should. We hung up. I went upstairs. Elise was sitting on the edge of the bed, still in her robe, sipping coffee. When she saw me, she smiled faintly. You okay? She asked. He sat beside her. Benjamin called. He heard from someone. Adrian. Her smile faded instantly. Elise, I said gently, did you write anything back then? Anything Colin could have used against you? She was quiet for a long time. Then she set her mug down and stared at her hands. Yes, she whispered. I did. My throat tightened. I was losing myself, Derek. I didn't have help. I didn't know how to be a mother with no money, no support. Benjamin was always crying, and Colin was never home. I felt trapped. She looked at me, eyes rimmed with old pain. I wrote things I never acted on, things I would never do, but I needed somewhere to put those thoughts. The journal was supposed to be private, therapy on paper. I nodded slowly, but Colin found it. She nodded. He twisted it, gave it to the court, told them I was unstable, that I was a threat to Benjamin. And in a way, I believed him. I believed maybe I wasn't good enough. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I should have told Benjamin. But how do you say that to your son? That you weren't perfect? That you wrote terrifying things because you were scared and alone? You say it, I said, because it's the truth, and because he needs it now. That afternoon, Elise sat at the dining table with her laptop and wrote the hardest message of her life. She didn't defend herself. She didn't deny the journal. She told Benjamin what happened, how lost she'd been, how terrified, how much she loved him, even then. She hit send. Then she shut the laptop and went outside for a walk. Alone, I watched her from the porch as she disappeared down the street. She didn't come home for 2 hours. But when she did, something was different. She looked lighter. Not healed, but honest.